Hey guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another retro RPG. And the end of another week, the end of another poll, we've got an absolutely astounding win for Dungeons & Dragons Set 4 Master Rules. Now as usual, I'll cover them on the desktop in a wee second, and I'll be back at the end of the video for some other channel related stuff and some other poll related stuff. But before I do that, I'd like to take a moment to talk about my Patreons, who this week I have been informed are ready to learn the real magic. Now if you'd like to join them, and I sure wish you would, and you'd like to see these videos a week early, or you'd just like to help support the channel, or you'd like to gain access to one of the other levels of patronage we've got a Patreon in the description down below. If you check it out, it'd be very much appreciated. But anyway, let's have a look at the Master Rules. So, this is the contents of the Dungeons & Dragons Set 4 Master Rules, which came out from TSR in 1985. I say the contents because these used to come in a nice black box, but I'm afraid that got lost quite a while ago, and these have been travelling around in my companion's box for many, many years. Probably for about 30 years now. And it consists of two books. So we've got the Master Player's book and the Master DM's book. The Master Player's book weighs in at 32 pages, and the Master DM book weighs in at 64 pages, so it's double the size. So basically we've got a player's handbook and a dungeon master's guide. And this continues through the Beckney boxes. So we've had the basic, the experts, the companions, and this is the masters, with only the immortals box to go. But this is the first one where I think it stumbles slightly, because this has a little reason to exist. Whereas the basic set introduces you to Dungeons & Dragons, the expert set takes you out of the dungeon and into the wilderness, companion set gives you companions, followers, starts you building armies, your characters heading up, and the immortal set takes you up to sort of godhood. The master set just kind of bridges the gap between the two. There's no real clear purpose in expanding your game that this has, except just extra levels and preparation for Immortals, because it does lay the groundwork for the Immortals in letting your players go up against other Immortals first, as they head towards that. But anyway, let's have a look at the player's book first of all. So, they don't waste any space at all. We've got the preface on the inside of the cover. Basic play, your young adventurers began their careers intent on the pursuit of fame and fortune. In the expert rulebook led them out of the dungeon and into the wider world. They ended their childhood and began a campaign, the saga of the world in which they live. In the companion set, they had a choice of paths to become rulers, amassing power and wealth, or travel, gathering knowledge and fame. Either path led to new adventures and new beginnings. Your characters will soon go beyond 25th level, looking for new challenges and perhaps even new worlds to explore. So, I suppose it is taking you beyond one world into travelling. Now, I must note that this is the era when Dave Arneson's was kind of getting expunged from the history, because it is Dungeons & Dragons by Gary Gygax, even though the player's book was compiled by Frank Menzer. And it does mention Dave Arneson in here, but it mentions Ernie and Luke Gygax, who have made frequent and noteworthy contributions to the game, far more than Dave Arneson. Now, as it mentions, this is taking characters up beyond 25th level, and that's what a lot of it is. So we've got table of contents, the ultimate game, talking about Dungeons & Dragons, alas, the cycle is complete, although the Immortal set is obviously still to come, and what's found within. And then we're going to character class descriptions. So we've got clerics, 26th to 36th level, their experience necessary, and the spells they get. So maxing out at 9 spells on each of their 7 levels. Their saving throws, it changes turning slightly, so they can instantly destroy low hit dice creatures as they go up in levels. We've got new spells, including Wish, which is more commonly known as a wizard spell. And we've also got Wizardry, which allows a cleric to cast a spell and use an item as a wizard for one action. And we've got Druids taking up through their spells. Magic users, with lots of new spells, 9th level spells. If I go back a second, we can see their spells are maxing out as 9 across all 9 spell levels, as they go from 26 to 36 level as well. And they also get heal, which seems an odd one. There's sort of merging of the two. We've got thieves who have their special abilities listed right up from level 1 to 36. We've got demi-humans maxing out at level 12 for dwarves, level 10 for elves, level 8 for halflings. So nothing really in this book for them. And then we're on to new armor equipment. And one of the big things is weapon mastery, which is kind of like weapon proficiencies as they were brought into Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. We've got magic user option, because not only fighters can get these, other classes can as well. And you get your bonuses for applying the benefits. You've got attack benefits, hit roll bonuses, ranged attacks, defense benefits, a despair effect. And we're now on to different types of weapons, including a bunch of polearms, which are nicely illustrated. Lots of very heavy tables of weapons with the ranges and damages. Special effects for different weapons. And then we're going up to siege equipment. So we've got catapults and breaching weapons, a siege tower or belfry, something I've never heard it called anywhere else. We've got creature attacks and special attacks against structures. So what happens if a dragon attacks your castle? Different siege weapons, expanded war machine rules for attacks on fortifications, siege machines resolving siege combat, and an afterword, which says it's detailing an afterword for the Dungeon Master's Guide, because they didn't have enough space in there. And on the back is the index, which seems a little odd of a place to put it. And then we've got the Dungeon Master's Guide, or the Master DM's book. Now the cover of this is a lovely map of the known world. Various places, many of these I've not heard of. Hyboria, is that not the Conan country? I haven't read any of the Conan books, and I haven't watched any of the movies since the 80s when the Arnold Schwarzenegger ones came out. It sounds somewhat familiar, but I don't really recognise any of these, although we have 2 sets of the Sea Kingdoms in there. And the book itself, well, we introduce anti-magic effects as to why it exists, how long it exists for. Character notes for creating high-level characters. So if a player joins your group and you're all up in your 30th level, you can make a character of that. Although it doesn't recommend doing that. Players who have played through this are experienced with the characters and know how to run high-level characters, whereas a newbie might not. But it's standard: choose a class, generate ability scores, find current cash, total hit points, magical equipment, things you can buy, magic item price ranges in there, special abilities, other special details, including retainers and troops. We've got dispel magic being detailed. We've got dominion income and experience. Different procedures for high-level characters, so aging. We've got revised hit point, experience point values, sorry. Hit roll charts expanded. And then we go on to detailing immortals. As characters approach 36th level, they will become aware of powers even mightier than their powers beyond mortal ken. The influence of these powers is deeply interwoven with the fabric of campaign events. So we've got the spheres of power, sphere of matter, energy, time, thought, entropy, or death. Hit charts for monsters, but it carries on with putting immortals into your game, how immortals manipulate people, what powers they have, what PC immortality will be like. Prerequisites for becoming an immortal: they must first reach 30th level. A demi-human must first reach an experience of more than 1 million to be a candidate for immortality. Modifiers they get, the results,
petition responses, the 4 paths, so they can become a dynast, an epic hero, a paragon, or a polymath. We then go on to intelligence of creatures, with their abilities to resist charm. So this is all very much fleshing out rules. We've got mystics here, martial arts, reality shifts, timekeeping, spellcasters non-human. So you can have different creatures which can cast spells as well. Undead attempts to control other undead, to build undead armies. And we've got some monsters here. So the Athach, an undead beholder, dinosaur, devilfish, great dragons, the ruler of all dragonkind, mountain giants, sea giants, lots and lots of monsters adding here, thugs, mystics, metamorphs, lava oozes, nightshades, sphinxes, phoenixes, and then a large list of quickly going over the stats for different creatures. And then we're bringing in artifacts. So magical items like the One Ring, but far more powerful than your average magic item. So how to activate them, what their powers might be, the fact that they will be intelligent, adverse effects, because having an artifact isn't always a good thing. Attacking it, destruction of an artifact, how they're created. And we've got various artifact power tables here, so you can roll randomly or you can add up the costs to make up your artifact level power item, along with the explanations of all those powers. Suitable for handicaps, you've got Doom, Magic Error, Lameness, Operating Costs. Suitable for penalties, Death, Forgetfulness, Gaseous Form. Suitable for both handicaps and penalties, Ability Score penalties, Alignment Change. Ethereality under stress, just different disadvantages you can have for using the artifact. It will give you extra abilities, but it'll have problems with it. And some known artifacts, the Armet of Wayland, Claw of Mighty Simmer, Comb of the Corrigans. I kind of hoped when I was looking through this to find the Hand of Vecna or one of the major famous ones, but none of these I really recognise. Humbaba's Glaring Eye, Hymea's Steaming Cauldron, Pyleus, the Rainbow Scarf of Sinbad, the Shard of Sakrad, Verthandi's Invincible Hourglass, the Wife of Ilmarinen, a sort of animated figure. So not something you wear, but something you can connect with, which will give you abilities, including handicaps and penalties. Some other magical items, going through them, and we've got various references here. And that is it. As I said, it doesn't really take the game in any massively interesting direction. It just takes you up further levels, introduces a bunch of monsters for the Dungeon Master, and starts to introduce some of the things we do recognise from Dungeons & Dragons. Artifacts, different planes of existence, and the chance to head towards immortality and godhood. But this is fairly weak. It just bridges the gap between the other sets, the Companions and the Immortals set, whereas the Immortals set delivers you all the really interesting goods at the end. Companion set expands out your game. This is just taking you slightly further, giving you more spells, more levels, more monsters.
So that was Dungeons & Dragons Set 4, the Master Rules, and that won the poll this week with an astounding 45% of the vote, way ahead of everything else, because in second place on 19%, so less than half of what the winner got, is the Adept's Way for Earthdawn. Now, I would have loved to have covered that. I do adore me some Earthdawn. In third place, Sourcebook 3 Mindworks for Rifts on 14%, a game so full of imagination it would have been worth covering, but alas not this time. In fourth place, on 13%, Fading Suns D20, and way back behind is Terra Counter Terra for Millennium's End on only 9%. And I will convince you to vote for it one day. It'll be worthwhile. It is a great game, and I do want to cover it at some point. But sadly, you didn't want it this time. You wanted Dungeons & Dragons. Anyway, as usual, all of those are wiped out the poll. And this time we're going over to Retro Adventures, and basically the selection is what was on my desk. Because when I'm recording these videos, I take the game out of my collection, I put it on my desk to do the recording, and then it tends to sit there for a few weeks until I tidy up. And the pile of books was getting so high this week that I had to tidy up, but there were these adventures from previous polls sitting here. Exactly 5 of them, so I decided to put them in the poll, because they're already here. But first up, we've got The Fiery Trial for Babylon 5. Now from my understanding, because this was a gift to me, this is a season-wide arc. The way Babylon 5 tended to do overarching storylines through their season with standalone episodes, this is the arc, which episodes will be dropped in between. It'd be interesting to see how they managed it in a role-playing game, and whether they did manage it. Next up, we've got the Venusian Apocalypse, the second seal of repulsion for Mutant Chronicles. Now this is the start of a campaign, so there'll be other parts to follow if we vote for this one. But I haven't covered Mutant Chronicles enough. It's a great game, and it's been a while, so I'd love to get around to doing that. Next up, we've covered the first part of it, so Star Wars Other Space 2 Invasion. Now, I don't really hear this being spoken about as much as Other Space, and I'd really like to have a look through it for you. We shall see what wins. Next up, we've got Into the Dark for Fading Suns, another gift to me. I have no idea what it's about. It would be interesting to cover. And finally, the Lone Wolf role-playing game, which the Lone Wolf game books were my introduction to role-playing, Dawn of Destruction. Another gift to me, and I'd love to cover it and see what's within this fantasy game, which stands out in my life because I did adore Lone Wolf. It was such an introduction to continuing a character through various game books and them growing and expanding, like your character does across multiple adventures. Now, what else has been going on? Well, over on DriveThruRPG, I've been putting out some cyberpunk character classes. Obviously, they're available for Patreons of Laird and Librarian status on a shared Google Drive. So if you're interested in getting them that way, there's a link in the description down below to the Patreon. There's also a link to my DriveThruRPG. If you click on that and check them out, it'd be very much appreciated. Now over on RPGgamer.org, my holiday's coming to an end, but I've been rolling out some interesting little oddities, including the cookbook. Because for a long time, me and my co-administrator on RPGgamer.org, we would start joking when we were adding monsters as to what they tasted a bit like. So for a long time we've been talking about adding recipes, and I've finally got around to doing that. These are just fairly ordinary recipes, you know, for beef burgers, lasagna and all that, but they're using Star Wars ingredients. But obviously you could actually cook with them because it makes real world suggestions what you could swap out. But anyway, I think I've been whittering on for quite long enough, so thank you very much for watching as always. But most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye now.